What it is, what it do, cyber world. It is your girl, the one and only, Ash Brown, and this is the Ash Said It Show. Over 2,000 episodes since 2014, 500,000 streams around the world. None of this is possible without you guys. So thank you so much for all of your love, all of your support, the shares, the cares. It makes a huge difference. Today, my guest is the multifaceted Mason Farmani. Hello, Mason.
Hello, Ash.
How are you
blessed
today?
to be on your show.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Mason, to start things off, where are you at in the world today? Like, where did you end up?
Oh, so it's, right now I'm in Palm Beach, Florida, and I've been here for 3 years, and before that I lived in Los Angeles, California.
Gotcha. All right. So, Mason, your journey has involved a lot of career pivots, so to speak, right? So,
Yes.
how can individuals identify their true calling and overcome the fear of making life changes?
I'm so sorry, I got disconnected for a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. I was saying, how can people identify their true calling and overcome the fear of making life changes?
Well, I think the most important thing is to really just examine if you're happy where you are in your life, right? Because a lot of times what drives us to change is a sense of dissatisfaction with where we are. It's because if you're completely happy with your life and you're content, why would you want to change, right?
Yeah.
So if you are dissatisfied with the way your life is currently, then it's really worth examining why and where we go from there. But in every change that I try to make with my clients, it's always the first question is, if you're happy where you are, then it's very hard to make a change. But if you're thriving for something, then yes, you absolutely can. And the first question you have to ask is really, in order to get to the purpose, we got to discover who we are. You got to look at yourself and say, who am I? And who am I not? And who do I want to be? Right? So because, again, this is a homework that I do with my clients, which is really life-changing. And it could be actually showing you, telling you things about your life that you didn't look at before. How many of us stop at our midway or quarter of the way in our lives to just examine who we are. So I would say that's really the first step in order to find your purpose.
Gotcha. Now, in today's world, everything is seeming to center on hustle culture. Everybody is on their hustle. They're hustling, trying to do this, hustling, trying to do that. How do you feel that we can effectively combat the burnout and prioritize our mental health without sacrificing ambition?
Yeah. Well, I see a lot of people are always running without a destination in mind, right?
Yeah.
And it varies from city to city. Like in Los Angeles, where I live, I just always saw people running. But when I would sit down with people, and still a lot of my clients live there. When I would sit down with people, it would be like, "Where are you going? Really? Do you know?" Right? So if you're hustling in life just for money, you're bound for burnout. Right? But if you actually know your purpose and you're working towards your purpose, then work is not work. It's a pleasure. Because you are contributing to your essence. And the roads and the doors will just continue to open for you, and life becomes becomes actually a pleasure to live, and the work becomes a pleasure to live. And then I think that, there's a lot of formulas I teach on clients on how to, for example, box time and figure out when is family time, when is spiritual time, when is work time, so that they don't all run into each other. But I think besides that, I think I'm giving you the answer anyways, but besides that, you have to kind of figure out, am I working towards my purpose? Am I running towards my purpose? How does it feel when I go to work, when I do this hustle and I do that hustle? I always say that if you're running towards a purpose, if you have your purpose figured out and you're trying to contribute to the society, then the money will come. But if the money is your driver, then most likely, even when you have success, it won't feel satisfying.
That's a really good point. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it makes sense. It's definitely making sense with it because, like you said, if your heart isn't in it and you're working for the money, because you can make money all day, every day. you can sit out there and have 6 different jobs, have all the money in the world, and be miserable. So,
absolutely,
what you said is key. Definitely being in it and feeling as though that you're in your purpose and you're working toward that goal, whatever that goal may be set for yourself. So I definitely agree with that. That's a good one.
And then I think also, one of the things that I always tell people is that if you can replace money, the purpose of money, with abundance, we have a different perspective.
Right.
Because you really want to live a life of abundance. You have a lot of, they all have those friends that they have a lot of money, but they're poor, right? Like, they're poor even though they have money. In the way they spend money, in the way they act around people, their lack of generosity. But if you have an abundant life, and that's where your focus is, rather than just trying to make money, then you're always wealthy. Right?
Yeah.
You're always wealthy. And one of the things I always teach people is that, focus on what it is you have. And when you put your attention and your focus on whatever it is you have, the laws of attraction is that you'll have more of that. But if you come from lack versus abundance, and you always think about how much you don't have, and what it is that you don't have in your life, because you have your attention and your focus on what it is you don't have, you'll have more of what you don't have.
Yeah, you are definitely right. Absolutely. Now, confidence coaching for women and minorities addresses the systemic barriers in corporate spaces. How can we move beyond individual coaching to create lasting systemic change?
Yeah, well, that's a really, really great question, right? Because, and it's a generation-old question, right? This is not a new question or a new concern. One of the things that I teach women and minorities is that you've got to really surrender to where you're different, rather than try to be like everybody else. Surrender to where you're different, and then contribute from that place.
Yeah.
Because it is the difference in the humanity that actually makes the humanity attractive. It makes the humanity really great, right? Adversity actually is what causes, over the years, about the companies, and I always insisted on adversity, because you can't just have yes people that think like you around you all the time. Your direction is very clear. But if you have adversity and you have the different types of thought process introduced, then you have a much more successful and fulfilling work area. So I always tell also, and some of your listeners may not like what I'm about to say, was that, rather than trying, if you're a woman, and by the way, 80% of my clients are women, and they're in the age of between 25 to 40, 45 years old, and they're all thriving. And one of the things I teach is that, the chase to become like a man is really a non-winning chase. Yeah. Because you're not, right? But if you can surrender to the fact that I am a woman and tap into the gifts that you have as a woman and your femininity, and, even in the boardroom, I've seen a lot of women that are successful because they have that femininity, they contribute from that place, but they're authority. They're authority in their own right, right? Yeah. So, but if we just continue to want to have equality, well, but that's, so I'm not saying we should not have the same rights and we should not have the same opportunities, right? But not as equal to man. Now we're just comparing ourselves to something else that doesn't exist. Actually, I would say, as a woman, you should be even more successful than a man. Tap into that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fight your own fight.
Yeah. I definitely agree in that. And going into, that we kind of jumped into the differences, between men and women dating and things of that nature, and everything that's on social media today, and popular culture says we should be doing this and doing that. We go into, the dating realm of things. How do you feel people learn to differentiate between the red flags and the green flags in the world where everyone is presenting a curated version of themselves, like they're representative, so to speak?
Yeah. Great question, because, there are scientific studies now that show that by age 7, we have a lot of our behavior that we have is programming. By age 7, because, if you look at it from we're hardware, our body the hardware, and our brain and mind the software. Well, software without programs, it doesn't do any good, right? So we got to find programs to put in the software so that we can live a life. The only problem is that, by the age 7, we don't have a lot of free will. In other words, we're not really sitting there deciding what it is that we want to have as behavior and what it is that we don't want to have as behavior. Now, there are new studies that show that by the time we're 30, we're all complete programming, and everything is a reaction to something that has happened to us in the past.
Right.
So take that, and now we're going to add to that. When it comes to the love and dating world, with all the social media that's happening, it actually now gives you even more programming. So, you look at the celebrities doing this and that in relationship, and you're like, oh my God, how come I don't have that? I want that. Now, all of a sudden, your driver is that celebrity rather than you.
Right.
It's a new programming that is actually happening subconsciously without you even really be aware that that's happening to you. So I think we got to just really get clear about what it is we want, right? Like really just sitting down, like when we go to rent an apartment or buy a condominium, buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
We make a list of what it is that we like and what it is we don't like, and then we make priorities. I want a kitchen. I want a big kitchen. I want a small kitchen. This one is a deal breaker. If it doesn't have laundry room, this one is not a deal breaker. So we should do the same thing for a partner. We should make a list of all the qualities that we're looking for in a partner and all the qualities that we're not.
Right.
What is it that I want as a partner? And then what happens is you don't have blind spots. Right? You're not looking at only wealth or only handsome or only a guy that or a woman that wears nice clothes.
Right.
So if you make a list and you make a priority of the list, like what are the deal breakers? Like, for example, I always tell people, like women always want safety, right? They want to feel safe next to a man. And they also want to be taken care of. So you got to listen to your own nervous system when you're sitting next to a guy on a first date and see how do you feel, right? Rather than going into infatuation and, you could, that's a part of it, of course. Right. You have to be infatuated. But also, like, what does your body feel? What is it saying to you? Are you calm next to this person? And are you looking for calm?
Right.
Or are you excited, and are you looking for excitement, right? So the balance of all of those qualities, I think, is that when you're making this, it becomes apparent. And then what I recommend is you go out on a date, you come back to your list, and see how that person measures up. And see if you want to add something to your list. It's like, oh, man, that guy was just eating, there's no tomorrow, and the food was dripping out of his mouth. So, food, eating etiquette should be added to my list.
Yeah. I mean, I had a date a few months ago with a guy that was consistently talking about his ex-wife and the stuff that she liked and the stuff that and I'm like, yeah, dude, you're not
unfinished business.
You're not, pick your, you got to look at your audience. Who you talking to?
Exactly. Well, that tells you he has unfinished business.
A lot of unfinished business. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why you'll know, when you, like you said, when you get into that situation and you have like this anxiety going on, and if the focus is on an ex and not on you during this date, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work out.
No, yeah, and you're not going to be. Now, this is very interesting, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, because there are some women that have the caregiver quality, right? They see that, and they want to go fix that guy, rather than, right? They want a project, and rather than looking at that and saying, this guy really should go see a therapist or a coach, he's got to process his loss. He's living in his relationship with his ex-wife, in his mind, in his brain. So I don't want to be his therapist. Are you kidding me? That's by the way, the first thing that goes when you're in that relationship, this is really good for everybody to listen to, is that if you're in a relationship that you feel like you have to be your spouse's or your partner's therapist or, listening is different than coaching and therapy, right? You can just listen and, be there for your partner. But if you're just constantly being a therapist, the first thing that eventually suffers is your sexuality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't sleep with your therapist.
Yeah.
If you are, it's because you have some unprocessed pathology.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had enough experience in life to where when I see the red flags and I see it's clear as day, this is not a person that you should be dating. This is not a person that is ready to date. And I'm not taking that responsibility. Like, I think it took me, I'd say like late teens, early 20s-ish, maybe like the mid-20s, to really understand, like you were saying, the nurturing effect of a woman, and we want to nurture and we want to take care of the guy, and we want to, and then you end up being like their mom, essentially. You're washing clothes, you're fixing dinner, and you're doing all that without a ring. There's no way. Nope.
Yeah. And by the way, the guy first gets used to it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And then if you're lucky or unlucky to be in a relationship for a while, then what you realize is that, oh my God, this is becoming like a one-way street.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start having resentment, right? Like, why am I doing all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but you create it,
yeah.
right? You condition this man to be lazy, and yet, now if a guy is masculine enough,
right,
he will probably not allow that to happen.
I learned that too.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But if he's not, then he's enjoying this whole thing, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to try to ride. Yeah. Go for it. By the way, can I put a request on what meal I want tonight?
Yeah, I'm just going to see, what issues she's going to, solve today. And then, should you bring it up to them, then it's, well, it's been like this the whole time. You didn't have an issue because, again, you conditioned him to be that way. So.
Yeah. So you got to be accountable.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be accountable in the relationship and see where your wounds are and how to. Because that, if you're continuing to be that person in every relationship, well, there is some trauma there. There's the wound there that has not been healed, and a lot of times for women, it's the relationship with the dad.
Yeah.
So, like, if your mom didn't take good care of your dad, then you wanted to always take care of the dad, and that becomes the behavior that plays a role in the relationship with men. And it's the same pretty much with guys, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that didn't happen with their mom, they want to have, or if they look up to their mom, they will find someone, as a partner that is like their mom.
Yeah.
And it's all about processing the trauma, processing your wound, so that it doesn't subconsciously affect your relationship.
Now,
but I'm so happy you said this, because I just, if you don't mind, that you looked at this at an early age, and you thought, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
That's being in charge. That's getting in charge and having free will.
Yeah.
As opposed to subconsciously just going with the flow.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's age and experience, and life has taught me a lot of different ways. I've only had to, knock my head on the concrete, once or twice in here to learn, what, that's not the right route. So now when you see those behaviors, oh, I'm not taking that on. That's absolutely not the route that we're going. Nope.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
So it's helpful because, you go on a date and you see right away, like, this guy talking about his wife, or he's a slob, and you're saying you're to be clean and neat, blah, blah, blah. How do you cordially get out of that situation?
It was a very uncomfortable situation. He had invited me to the opera, and at the opera house they were selling popcorn, and I have issues sometimes with my gum. This is like TMI, but I have issues with my gum sometimes. So I'm not a real big popcorn person because the kernels get stuck in my gums, and it's a whole situation. So, we got there, I was dressed cute. I had my little dress on and my makeup and my hair's done. And he looked nice. He had like a, little, like a polo type of shirt, and, he had his slacks, and he looked good. He smelled amazing. And, we're going into the show, and he turns to me and he's like, hey, do you want to get popcorn? And I was like, nah, I really don't want to, I don't feel like popcorn. No. And you would have thought that, like, I shot a puppy in front of him. Like, he was about to, like, tear up. And I was like, sure, okay, yeah, let's get popcorn. And so from that point on, it just went downhill. It just went downhill. He started to weep during the play. It was weird. It was awkward. I was nice. I was courteous. I didn't let on that I wasn't interested. Throughout the evening, he walked me to my car and everything. And that was basically it. He called me a couple times and texted me a couple times, and I just kind of ghosted him. I just didn't respond back. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you, would it be uncomfortable to tell him, I enjoyed the evening, but, unfortunately, we're not a fit. I really wish you good luck.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been good. That would have been a good way to express it. It's just, he just kept bringing up his ex-wife. As we were walking out to the car, he's like, oh yeah, that building, my ex-wife worked over there for 8 years and blah, blah, blah. And she's making this type of salary. So it was just almost like I wasn't there or something. I don't know. It was like he wasn't conscious that he kept bringing her up. And I'm sure she's a lovely lady, whatever did transpire there. But everything was my ex-wife. And it completely turned me off to him. And I just was at a place where I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna, at some point he'll get a hint. He'll buy a clue. And if he doesn't, well, somebody will tell him. So.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think we all have experienced some of that in our lives when we go out with someone. But that things like that happen. Mm-hmm. Do you think going to like an opera or a movie on a first date is a good idea?
I didn't see an issue with it. It's a public forum. Like if he said like, someplace more secluded, I'm one type person where I like to be in the public setting, just in case if something does go awry, there's witnesses. We've got eyes everywhere. The Fox Theater is renowned here in Atlanta. So, it's beautiful. I've been going there since I was a kid. And like I said, very public place. If it was something more secluded or he's like, hey, come to my house. I'm not doing that. That's not happening. That's not happening, sir. But public setting, and then I'm prior military too, so I'm always like checking out like, exits and stuff, and just in case, things do go awry, I want to make sure that I'm casing the place. I know exits, I know about safety. I can perform CPR. So I'm keeping all of these things, very much on my radar. When it comes to a first date. So for the opera, I didn't see an issue with that. Not a problem with that. But if he had suggested something else, a little bit more intimate, I wouldn't have been down for that. No.
Yeah. Great. Good to know. Thank you.
Well, look how that turned around, basically. You had me answering the questions. That was so cool. I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. But Mason, this has been very enlightening. Thank you so much for coming through and sharing, dropping some knowledge in on us. And let us know the best way if people want to book you, if people need to get in contact, if they want to be a client. What is the best way of getting in contact with you?
You can go to my website, which is Farmani, Farmani, coaching.com. You can follow me on Instagram, again, Farmani Coaching, and send me a message, direct message on Instagram, or you can just call, which is my preferred way, so things don't get lost in the email and all of that. Mm-hmm. And the phone number to reach me is 310-413-4113. That's 310-413-4113.
Sounds like the plan. Mason, thank you again for coming through. We certainly appreciate your knowledge. And, of course, you're welcome back. Who knows? You may be talking about my next, my next dating exploits are, perhaps we can go through and, decipher some of those stories where there's trauma there lives. Oh my goodness, I got stories.
I would love that. Can I just give a message, a closing for your audience?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about programming. But, one of the things that I really encourage everyone to do is to be conscious of all the programming, right? And the way you know that there is a program at work rather than your free will is trigger. Whenever you get triggered by something and you're like, oh my God, why did I do this? That's unresolved trauma that has caused a programming to be in place. Or a defense mechanism to be in place. So I would just invite you to understand that, okay, so the reason I got triggered here and it wasn't warranted is because I have something. And then all you have to do is take a breath rather than react. Take a breath enough to get yourself away from that reaction. Yeah. And if you don't have to, don't react until you're calm. Until that trigger is no longer has you and no longer operating. And then you can start to feel a little bit more calm and in charge.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All life lessons, all stuff we've seen and come to the realization of, Mason. Again, thank you so much for coming through. And
pleasure.
Definitely appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. And always remember, keep in mind, anyone to tell you that you can't do what you want to do, you look them square in the face, you tell them, don't believe me, just watch. Watch what I do, watch me make it happen, watch me make history. That's what we're doing this for, the history books. Social media is nice, but real life is so much better. Until next time, you guys.